This summer, there was no shortage of climate hysteria. Mainstream media was basically orgasmic, screaming, "We're killing the planet! We're killing the planet!" But what if I were to tell you that there are some things that they, and by they, I mean government and corporate media, haven't been telling you that in themselves may go a long way to explaining things? Sorry, it's not carbon dioxide, as St. Greta and the folks at Extinction Rebellion would like us to believe. Ready to blow your mind? Does the name Hunga Tonga mean anything to you? No, it's not a Samoan wrestler. Hunga Tonga is an epic record-shattering volcanic eruption that occurred in 2022. I know what you're thinking. Hey Cam, it's not that epic. Well, how could it be? Because I didn't even hear about it. Well, that's a good question. I'm sure by the time I'm done, you'll figure out exactly why you didn't hear about it. Back in January 2022, we were all distracted by COVID mandates, and the media, either advertently or inadvertently, failed to report on an underwater volcanic explosion in the Pacific Ocean named Hunga Tonga Ha'apai, 490 feet under the waves, which massively erupted, bigger than any modern eruption, even bigger than Mount Pinatubo. Given it was underwater and nobody died, it failed to appear on anyone's radar except for those folks who watch for and monitor such events. In the aftermath of the eruption, lava instantly vaporized unfathomable amounts of seawater, which billowed into the atmosphere, changing the water composition of Earth's atmosphere and heating it up for years. In only a few days, the superheated water from the Hunga Tonga eruption blanketed the globe pole to pole, east to west. The eruption was so big, it could be clearly seen from space. Want proof? No problem. An August 2022 headline about the eruption straight from the NASA website proclaimed, "Tonga eruption blasted an unprecedented amount of water into stratosphere." Unprecedented is accurate, but it underscores the magnitude of what happened. Here's how the rocket/climate scientists at NASA described Hunga Tonga as one of the world's most dramatic events in modern history. When the Hunga Tonga Ha'apai volcano erupted on January 15th, it sent a tsunami racing around the world and set off a sonic boom that circled the globe twice. The underwater eruption in the South Pacific Ocean also blasted an enormous plume of water vapor into Earth's atmosphere, enough to fill more than 58,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. The sheer amount of water vapor could be enough to temporarily affect Earth's global average temperature. This not only injected ash into the atmosphere, but also large amounts of water vapor, breaking all records for direct injection of water vapor by a volcano or otherwise in the satellite era. The excess water vapor injected by the Tonga volcano could remain in the stratosphere for several years. As this extra water vapor could influence atmospheric chemistry, boosting certain chemical reactions that could temporarily worsen depletion of the ozone layer. It could also influence surface temperatures since water vapor traps heat. "We've never seen anything like it," said Louise Milon, an atmospheric scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California. Not surprising, the experts at NASA at this time woefully underestimated the amount of water Hunga Tonga ultimately vaporized into the atmosphere. Current estimates are 3 times higher than the original. Scientists now think it was closer to 150,000 metric tons or 40 trillion gallons of superheated water, which was instantly injected into the atmosphere. Think instant greenhouse. Turns out that water vapor, humidity, is a much more effective greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. A new study published in April this year analyzed the one-year after effects titled Global Perturbation of Stratospheric Water and Aerosol Burden by the Hunga Tonga Eruption, a one-year aftermath. With a year in hindsight, the 2023 researchers also concluded that Hunga Tonga was one of the most remarkable climate events in modern history, and its effects are expected to last year. And I quote, "Due to extreme altitude, research of the eruption, volcanic plume circumnavigated the Earth in only 1 week and dispersed nearly pole to pole in 3 months. The observations provide evidence for an unprecedented increase in the global stratospheric water mass by 13% as compared to climatological levels. As there are no efficient sinks of water vapor in the stratosphere, this perturbation is expected to persist for several years. The eruption has also led to a 5-fold increase in the stratospheric aerosol load, the highest in the last 3 decades, yet factor of 6 smaller than the previous major eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991. The unique nature and magnitude of the global stratospheric perturbation by the Hunga eruption ranks it among the most remarkable climatic events in the modern observation era." Take that in. Did you hear anything about it? Now, aren't you grateful government officials, mainstream media, environmental activists have been proclaiming and shouting about Hunga Tonga to anyone who would listen? Oh yeah. They've been too busy telling us that probably it's all Trump's fault. But hey, you didn't expect them to be forthcoming, did you? By now, if you got 2 functioning brain cells, you're starting to think, hey, maybe the hot summer weather that we just lived through might have something to do with this historic volcanic eruption from last year. If so, guess what? You aren't the only one. Here's another study from April this year. The Hunga Tonga Ha'apai stratospheric eruption of the 15th of January 2022, a global warming volcanic plume? Say what? Global warming? Plume? Odd that this was completely ignored by corporate media once again, given their fetish to report on all things related to climate. To Al Gore's dismay, these researchers were even more direct in connecting the historic heat wave to Hunga Tonga. And I quote, "We find that the Hunga Ha'apai eruption produced the largest perturbation of stratospheric water vapor observed in the satellite era. After 2 weeks, due to dilution, water vapor heating started to dominate the top of the atmosphere radiative facing, leading to a net warming of the climate system. This is the first time a warming effect on the climate system has been linked to volcanic eruptions, which usually produce a transient cooling." This story made the science news, which makes it even more surprising that corporate media, once again, somehow found a way to successfully ignore the story. An EOS headline from March of this year read, "Tonga eruption may temporarily push Earth closer," get this, "to 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming," with a subheadline of, "The underwater eruption of Hunga Tonga Ha'apai sent megatons of water vapor into the stratosphere, contributing to an increase of global warming over the next 5 years." See that? Hunga Tonga warming could last 5 more years. Funny how that's never mentioned by the climate alarmists, huh? While I can forgive them, given their, gluing their asses to busy roadways and intersections, but what's the deal with corporate media? You would think a story about the fact that the atmospheric water vapor is off the charts. How much? Well, for the first time since tracking began, the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere is pegged out at the maximum across the board. So, what gives with corporate media? Simple. They're ignoring the most dramatic climate event in modern history because you can't legislate underwater volcanoes. It's one of those inconvenient acts of God. And because of this, no further political ends can be achieved, since volcanoes aren't subject to politics and you cannot weaponize them for climate alarmists. Why bother? By now, I'm sure some of you might still be a little skeptical and thinking, you got anything to shore up this volcanic theory? Why? I thought you would never ask. The ethical skeptic who's been tirelessly crunching COVID mortality figures for the last few years has now set his sights on the climate. Already, he's been pointing out another startling fact that you probably never heard of. For some odd reason again, worldwide ocean surface temperatures have bafflingly jumped rapidly this year, much too fast for any cause to have been atmospheric. First, although Antarctic ice has just very recently started melting quickly and a lot. It is during a record cold winter, though, in Antarctica right now, which is why you haven't heard about it. Kind of deflates the enthusiasm of climate fanatics. Record low temperatures and ice melting, how could it be? The theory that Ethical is putting forth to explain the dramatic melting is that the oceans are heating up due to increased activity in the Earth's molten core, like the kind of activity that could cause giant underwater volcanoes to erupt. Various data support his theory. One study he often cites found dramatically increased water temperature at abyssal levels, deep underwater, where increased air temperatures have little to no effect. In other words, Ethical is suggesting that the water is heating the air instead of the other way around, and the Earth's core is heating the water. It's a theory that explains everything and may unravel the mystery that the scientists have been baffled coast to coast by. But even though scientists are baffled, corporate media and the climate narrativists are obsessed with blaming ocean warming on carbon dioxide, which, based on what I've just laid out, is a ridiculous notion. What I would encourage you to do is do an online search for deep sea hydrothermal vents and see what comes up. There have been a number of stories in 2023 laying out that scientists as of late have been discovering deep sea hydrothermal vents that are hot enough to melt lead. Hot enough to melt lead. That sounds awfully hot. Which leads to the next question of what causes boiling hot deep ocean vents. Alex, I'll take volcanic activity for the daily double. Magma from the Earth's core is heating up the water, folks, which is venting out, raising ocean temperatures and putting even more water vapor into the atmosphere, which heats the air through greenhouse effects. I am not an expert, but from what I can tell, this has nothing to do with carbon dioxide by humans. Of course, this is an inconvenient truth that corporate media is remiss to mention in all their articles about global warming. They ignore Hunga Tonga. They ignore the rapidly melting Antarctic sea ice. They ignore abyssal water heating and related deep sea data. They only want to show you that the summer heat map was, and due to all of this global warming, and run clips of young, naive climate propagandists screaming about SUVs literally killing everybody's grandma, and that unless we go back to the dark ages, life as we know it will cease to exist. Not sure about you, but call me a little skeptical and cynical when it comes to trusting the science and those peddling it. At best, and giving them the benefit of the doubt, these experts have only the foggiest notion of what heats and cools the earth. And more importantly, they tend to ignore any evidence that goes contrary to their preconceived notions. Maybe they don't realize that the climate has been changing ever since God created the world, and in spite of their brilliance and expertise, their belief that they somehow know what the optimal global climate is, or have the foolhardy notion that they can somehow lock it in till the end of time, that utopian climate without wreaking havoc on everything else isn't just the epitome of human hubris, but insanity as well. Anyway, I thank you for watching. I know this video has been a bit long. I have put lots of links in this notes section. Please check them all out. About Hunga Tonga, about the thermal vents, about the heating, everything. All of them are there. I encourage you, like I said, please check this out. This story has gotten little to no attention, and it's one that very few people are familiar with. Again, I do appreciate your patience. I know this has been a long video, and I will see you next time. Please subscribe to my channels if you haven't done so. You can also follow me on my Rumble, my locals, and I'm on OX, that's right, formerly Twitter. And my handle is @Camera612 with a K. See you next time.